Here we are once again with the continuing saga of the Whitby refurbishment story. As you remember in the last video, I was talking about putting aside the cockpit work after having done the slats and moving on to the engine, which I did do, and I'm now going to show you a bit of an update on what's been going on there. It's been a couple of months now, a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but there has been issues, and I will show you. So I'll come through here, and the first thing that I did was I drained the tanks. The fluid, the diesel fuel was stale, so I decided to drain the tanks. And what ended up happening was I noticed that there was crud coming through from the bottom of the tank. So I decided we needed to pull the top covers off the tanks and pump them, which led to other issues. And one of the issues that I found was when I pulled the hose apart on the starboard tank, this is the hose here, the hose itself broke away at the top from the fill point. Now the hose itself is obviously rotten, but the fill point itself was made of steel coming through the deck of the hull. So at that point I knew I had to not only replace the hose but also the fill point as well. So I'm going to show you that up on deck in a second. But one of the other things I found when I was pulling the hose off and realizing I had to replace the hose was the tanks had to be cleaned, which was done using a high pressure washer, and then that was siphoned out. Then a vacuum cleaner was used inside the tank to clean the tank out. The tank hulls were actually about 10 inches long by about 9 inches wide, so they were quite a large access hole in the top of them. I could get my arm in there and get right down into the bottom of the tank, so that wasn't a major issue. But we obviously found other issues, and now we'll go up on deck and I'll go down below and I'll show you what some of the things that I've decided needed to be done. Actually, before we get down below deck, while we're up here on deck, while I was waiting for parts to arrive for the gas tanks, like hose and fuel stuff, I occupied myself with doing more teak work. And as you'll see over there, that has been sanded back and stained there and there. Again, we've got shade here from the tarpaulin, makes it a bit difficult to see, but that's been done, as well as the entranceways have been sanded and stained on both sides. This as well underneath there. But I've also done the handrails on top of the deck, as well as the cap rail going all the way around the top of the deck. Now we'll go back out there and I'll show you. So you see the handrail here has been sanded and stained as well as the cap rail. So that took a while, obviously, to get all that done. And this is during my spare time waiting for parts. And then what I also chose to do was to try and make myself up a granny bar to go around the main mast. I made it nice and tall, waist high, because I'm 6 foot 2 inches tall. It needed to be rather tall. But having made this is a safety rail for when you're underway. You need to work around the main mast and you need something to lean on when the boat is heeled over and you're in heavy seas and so on and so forth. This is just an added bit of safety gear. But having made it, I'm actually not happy with it because it's rather spindly. If it had been 1.25 inch pipe, that would have been much more solid. I would have been happier with that. So I think it's not screwed to the deck right now. I decided to stop there and quit that project and look at make something else. So yeah, that's going to be pulled apart again, keep this stainless for some other project, and move on from there. All right, so that's what's been going up on deck while I've been waiting to do stuff below deck. Now we'll go below and I'll show you what I've been up to down below. All right, here we are. Oh, did I show you this? I picked up another wheel for the helm. This one here. I'm not sure if I've shown this already. The wooden handles through here. And I'm just going to have to find a cap to put on the center. I'll probably end up making one and use a bit of clear epoxy to put an emblem on a teak wood base in here. I won't tell you what the emblem's going to be. I've already ordered it in the mail, but once it's made I will show it to you, and you'll notice it'll be quite nice. Anyway, down below we go. All right, now here we are in the saloon. Nothing has changed here other than it's a mess as per usual. This is the latest project area here. This is the new hose, dog leg for the hose, and here is the tank cap. Let's see if we can put some light on this. Okay, we've got some light in there, that helps. So the hose goes underneath here and it goes up behind the electrical panel, which is behind this open lid. Now, as you can imagine, you want that hose to be in perfect condition and not to leak, because you don't want diesel fuel spilling over all your electrical wiring connections behind your electrical panel. So that was one of the concerns I had. Decided to replace the hose. So what did I do on the tank? Well, having cleaned the tanks and inspected the top covers, I realized it had no access whatsoever to actually reading how much fuel is in the tank. How much diesel is in the tank? You would not know until you started running dry. So what I did is I ordered some fuel tank sender units. These are 500 millimeters long. They go all the way towards about 1.5 inches to 2 inches from the bottom of the tank. So even once this reads empty, there's still a little bit of fuel left, and you know you've got a little bit in reserve. That's the idea behind that. It's electrical, so the wiring is still to be done, but I have put this on both tanks. This has got a new cap on the tip, because what had here before was another fill point, or not a fill point, but a fuel feed point for the diesel heater, which has now been eliminated. I decided to take it out. It was a great big monstrosity that was very old. I didn't know if it worked. Because I'm not sailing up north into the cold countries, I decided to eliminate it and increase my storage areas in the boat, which was actually ended up being quite extensive, because the diesel heater had 6-inch round ducting pipe running all the way around through the boat, taking up quite a lot of storage area. So anyway, this has been put in on the starboard tank. This fuel pump is going to be put in line on the fuel line that feeds the engine. So because there is no fuel pump on the engine, so there is a fuel pump for this tank, and there is a fuel pump for the portside tank, which is already set up over there. So the portside tank is finished and connected up, other than it needs wiring, which will be done soon. Now, I'm not sure if I remember doing in a previous video, but this is the refurbished Racor over there in the corner. That's for the port tank, obviously, and has new fuel lines running from the tank down through here to feed the engine. The Racor on this side has also been refurbished. Looks quite nice now, and also has new lines coming from it to the engine. So both the Racors are in good condition, new fuel filters in them, and with the tanks cleaned, new lines, new fuel pumps. This will, I know now that I can get fresh fuel to the engine. What I also did was replace the water pump. This has got a new water pump on it. I decided to replace that. It's got a new alternator on it as well. That's been replaced. It also has a new starter motor on it. I know she's got good compression. I've tried turning it over before. She does turn over well. I haven't had it running yet. The engine only has 700 hours on it, so I don't have any major beliefs that it's a bad engine. Maybe the fuel pump is bad. That's the one thing that is the one accessory on the outside of the engine I have not replaced. So, but I'll look at doing that at a later date if the engine doesn't run. I will be checking that by cracking the fuel lines up here that go into the injectors, and while the engine's turning over, to see if I'm getting diesel through to them. If I am, then we know the fuel pump works. All right, so that's that for the fuel tanks and the fuel lines. As I said, I've got to connect up the electrical wiring to the fuel sender units, which will then have to go through to some fuel gauges. Since this boat never had fuel gauges, that's another thing I had to buy, which is right here. Here we go. Brand new fuel gauges, which will have to be connected into the pedestal. We'll have to drill holes into the pedestal housing and put these in somewhere. Right now, I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to look at that as I'm working on the project. So yeah, that's what I've been busy with. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it has been taking my time, doing the woodwork and such, waiting for the fuel sender units and fuel gauges to come in the mail, and doing just little projects around the boat. Once the engine is running, then I can put the boat in the water. This cable here is the new throttle cable that I'll be putting in as well, that goes from the pedestal, and that'll come in a later episode when we get to check that out as well. So that's about it for now. I don't think there's anything else that I can show you that I can remember. So a little bit of an update. Things have been going a lot slower than I wanted to, as it always is on a boat. There's always something else you find that needs to be done. I honestly thought that when I emptied the tanks, I just have to re-top them back up with fresh fuel and away I'd go. But that turned out not to be true. And it delayed things a lot, which caused me to take on other projects while I was waiting for parts, such as you've seen. All right, so that's it for now. We will send you another update in the near future. Enjoy the video. Talk to you again soon.